live.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Boost and Booze. Of course, I'm back, Seth. We've got Juan up there from some sort of racing. Yayo down here is a guest speaker. He's going to talk to us a little about buying motorcycles, a guest of Juan's. And then, of course, we have Caleb down here, who's one of Juan's drivers. I'll be talking to him later on the episode about getting started in motorsports as a young man. So that'll be good. We're going to start today off with talking about buying a car, right? And specifically buying a performance vehicle. So there's a lot of crap cars out there right now. After the big influx of importation from Japan, you're starting to see importation from other places around the world, Europe, Australia, as the prices in Japan keep rising. And it's important that you guys know what you're looking for out there. You know, we have a lot of viewers. Some of these guys out here viewing are professional drivers, professional mechanics, you know, and this episode's not really geared for you guys. I hope you chime in as we kind of work through this, but this is geared more for our younger followers, the guys out there that may be looking at getting their first JDM car or their first performance muscle car or performance bike, and making sure that you at least have a vague idea of what to look for. So with that, I'm going to open the floor up for anyone that's got some opening comments. Going once.
Yeah, so biggest thing when we talk about being a consumer and buying, you know, kind of a buyer's beware, right? What are we looking for? Whether it's a car or a bike, are we looking for maintenance records, right? Has the car been well maintained? How many miles are on the vehicle? Where is it coming from? I know, especially in North Carolina, we talk about, oh, well, that car came from up north, or it's been in North Carolina its whole life. You know what I mean? If it's been in North Carolina its whole life, it's usually something that we can, you know, that we kind of give the green light on. If we have a vehicle that's, let's say, came from New York, for example, Buffalo area where they get tons of snow, I want to steer away from something like that, man, just because you don't know what you're going to get into when it comes to the snow, the rot, the frame rust, things of that sort. And you're not too sure, you know what I mean, what you're going to be getting yourself into, man. It really even comes down to, it can be something that was for you, Phil. I see you in the comments. But it could be, you know, something as simple as, you know, oh, this flash guard won't bolt back up because the holes are rusted. But then now you got your oil filter that can't come off because the sucker's rusted on there. So things of that sort. Like I said, we kind of look for a geographical area. Where's that vehicle coming from? I love West Coast vehicles because typically they are safe from rust. So that's always a plus. But you kind of really never know, man, when you're going to, you know, the upper states. I would say north of the Mason-Dixon, which I've never been to, by the way. I've never been north of the Mason-Dixon in my life. So I don't plan to. But yeah, man, I know Yayo's from New York, so he can tell you a little bit about what to expect from cars coming from the north. But like I said, that's one of the biggest things, man, is we try to stay away from cars that come from trouble areas geographically that we're going to see, rust issues. We're going to see salt issues. We're going to see dry rotting, things of that sort, paint, and like those hotter areas. I know I said I love the West Coast, but you get a car from Arizona, dude, it's going to be sunken, right? It's not going to be in the best condition. But to also add on to that, I would say another big thing that we look for is maintenance. At least, speaking for myself, right? Was the car taken care of? Was it beat on? Was it, did somebody try and think that their 2003 Kia Rio was the next hot B-class racing, car? So those are some of the things that we look into when we look at purchasing a vehicle. Has the car been crashed, Caleb?
So
go ahead.
So yeah, the things that Juan's touching on, right? But how do you know that? That's kind of the point of this podcast. It's easy to say, yeah, has the car been crashed? But how are the viewers out there going to know that? So one of the ways, very easily is to do X measurements in the engine bay. For example, on a front end collision, right? If you measure diagonally from the firewall, the back firewall to the front of the radiator support, and then you measure again from the opposite side, the measurement should be equal, right? If you measure from the radiator support to the center of the strut towers, the measurement should be equal. So these are easy ways to check. Looking at the spot welds, have the spot welds been pulled and then re-welded, right? But more importantly, the technical aspect, I think one of the things I wanted to touch on that Juan was kind of hitting all around is know your limitations when you go to buy a car, right? And I can't stress this enough. As a tuner, I get guys all the time, and it's unrelated to buying a car, but they'll message me all the time and they're like, I want to tune my 2001 automatic Toyota Corolla. Like, well, bro, there's nothing out there to do it, but they don't know that, right? I want to tune my 4-door automatic ER34 Skyline. Well, dude, that's a taxi cab. That's not a tuner car. But they didn't know that when they bought it, and they're paying premium prices for it. So know what you're buying is the first step, I would say. Research your chassis that you are interested in, and understand that not all Skylines are made the same. Not all X, Y, and Z are necessarily the same across trim levels, right? That's your first step. A Toyota Corolla is not a GR Corolla, if you want to put it into modern terms, right? 2, when I say know your limitations, know what you're getting yourself into. Buying a car for myself, or Juan buying a car for himself, or a bike for himself, I'm sure Yayo as well, and give it a couple of years, Caleb, I'm sure being around the motorsports industry, it'll be a lot different, right? I have an R33 out there that I picked up as a professional drift car to rebuild. And I was willing to take a lot more risk on that because I can strip that car, I can weld, I can fabricate, I can do wiring, I can do engine rebuild. I'm willing to take that risk on labor. You starting out may not be willing to take that risk. You may not have that technical capability yet. And how much money are you willing to put into the chassis you're buying? Are you maxing yourself out on buying this, for all intents and purposes, 1991 Nissan? You know what I mean? It's going to have problems. It's going to have a 30-year-old wiring harness. So be very, very realistic. Don't have, what do they call it, rose-colored lenses when you're looking at this car. Yeah, man, that car was super, super dope in 1991. But now, today, it's like Joe Coy says, my brand new, second-hand, lightly used Toyota Tacoma, right? Brand new 2001 Toyota Tacoma.
There's always a reason why they stopped making cars, right?
So be realistic is, I think, the biggest point that I want to make today. Go through the body, get under the body. If you don't know and you don't have the technical expertise, pay a mechanic, man. It is the best $200 that you're going to spend, is to have someone that does this for a living go through that car.
Yeah, absolutely. I concur with that 100%, man. And I can't tell you how many times I've done it for friends of mine that are like, hey, man, I'm looking at buying this car. I'm looking about getting this. Can you come with me? You know what I mean? And I'll be straight up, man. I'm that asshole that's going to pull the dipstick. I'm that asshole that's going to open up the oil fill and look down with a scope. I'm that asshole that's going to show with a borescope and a diagnostic scanner so I can run the codes and see what the history is on that vehicle. I'm that guy. You know what I mean? And it's just doing your due diligence, right? When you're looking into something like that and what you're looking to purchase, do your due diligence. I had a guy that had bought a Land Rover Defender. That's badass, dude. You know what I mean? Love Land Rovers. I think they're super cool. But he didn't know anything about it. You know what I mean? It's not a stab at him, but he just, it was something cool. It's something that he always cherished and wanted to buy. It was a dream car of his. But he didn't have any clue what to do with it, man. And now you're looking for somebody that works in a very niche market that can work on a 200D, 200 TD Land Rover Defender. So again, know what you're getting yourself into. And the same thing goes for bikes, man. I had a guy buy a 1980 Ironhead, badass bike. Love them to death. Super easy for me to work on. But you're talking about a bike from the 1980s. It has no electronics. It doesn't have, it's got mechanical timing, mechanical ignition timing. If you don't know what you're doing, man, it's not like you're buying one of these new Milwaukee 8s where you just change plugs, change oil, and you're good to go. So definitely know what you're getting yourself into. Yeah, what do you think about that, man?
I mean, yeah, no, 100%. Like, there's a reason that they quit producing certain vehicles. So going out to buy, like, because Seth had brought that up earlier. It's like the best example from experience, the old Chevy Trailblazers. Because I know firsthand what killed two trailblazers, my grandfather's and my father's. It was a single bolt that rusted out, snapped off, killed that truck. And I see a lot of people that are still going out there looking for those older trucks. I mean, even the Expeditions and stuff like that, where it's like, I don't know, a little questionable, especially with the mileage. And I am that guy that'll run a magnet around the car to find all your whack Mondo work.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm as guilty as anyone else, man. My first RX-7, I bought it while I was in Afghanistan. I'd never seen the car before. I didn't inspect the car. I literally just called my ex-wife up and was like, go pick up this RX-7 for me. I Western Union money to the guy from Afghanistan. Like, that was stupid. And that car, I ended up rebuilding that car like 2 months later. The engine popped. I mean, no inspection, no compression tests, no vacuum leak test, nothing. I just sent it. And that was stupid because I just wanted RX-7. Don't fall in love with the car, inspect the car. And I think everyone can attest to that. It's not just performance cars, it's across the board, right? Like, I mean, my dad, when I was growing up, always told me, like, when you're out to buy a car, don't act like you're too interested in it. And sometimes it's really hard not to, because you really, really want that car, right? Especially as they get rarer and rarer to find.
Absolutely.
You know how many times I've seen people buy these squatted trucks because Carolina squat's cool, and they're surprised when their ass end slides out from underneath them.
Or the trucks that are super lifted and they wrap an axle because they're on blocks and not a legit suspension.
What do you mean I ate my diff?
Yeah. But now gearing more towards the younger generation, right? Caleb, you're 15 now, man, and I'm super proud of you, first of all, and I just want to say that publicly, man. You've really you came. So a little bit about Caleb, man. He came into my shop, hit me up. I've known his family for some time now, and he hit me up last summer and was like, "Hey, I want a job. I want to make my own money." And I'm like, "Cool, man. Like, I'm all about it, dude. I can, what do you want to do?" He goes, "Well, can you take me in your shop?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, that's awesome, dude. We'll take you in the shop. You're off all summer. We'll teach you some things, right? Of course, within limitations of that whole legal thing and the government, we can only have him doing so many things. But he did get to spread his wings a little bit, man, and that was a really cool experience to, as a business owner, to have somebody so young, so inspired to want to learn and wanting to progress themselves. And it could very well be a trade that he doesn't pursue as an adult, and that's totally fine. But he at least got the experience and got to learn what working is like, and putting in hours and turning wrenches. So it was a really good opportunity for him. It was a good opportunity for me, working with somebody like that. I hope that my son would want to do the same thing when he gets your age. And I think that'd be really cool to have my kids in the shop. I know my daughter loves it now, but she's going to turn into, a little prima donna, as I suspect. And, I hope that she wants to continue that pursuit in motorsports. But like I said, Caleb is a great kid, man. He keeps himself out of trouble. He's not into any of that bad stuff. You know what I mean? He's not out there looking for drugs, trying to go party, things of that sort. He's in high school now. But he's really dedicated to his studies, which is awesome, man. He's got a new girlfriend. Congratulations. I know he's super motivated for his girlfriend. But like I said, man, it's just awesome to see somebody at his age wanting to pursue a motorsport, and having him come under my wing. What was it? The end of the summer, right? We went to our first race together.
Yeah.
At the end of the summer, we went out to Bobby Watson's Carteret Speedway, and we went to go watch a short track race. And I told his parents, I was like, "Hey, can I take them to the race?" They're like, "Yeah, we're all about it. They're super cool, right?" So I asked Caleb, "Do you want to go to a race?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." He's always kind of had this like laid back demeanor, right? He's just like, "Yeah, sounds cool." So, we throw him in the truck, take him down to the racetrack, and he had a blast. You can see about 10 minutes after the race has started, you see his face kind of light up, and he was just having a good time. So we leave him, alone, don't pick on him, let him have a good time. And afterwards, I said, "What do you think about racing, man?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd actually like to do that." So kind of got the ball rolling, man. We started reaching out to sponsors. Seth is one of our sponsors. We appreciate that. But we started reaching out to sponsors. We found a car. I had a car to start with. We ended up trading it for the Eclipse, and just kind of got everything rolling. And we were able to get him some laps on the track. And it's been real slow getting started this time around. This season has been really slow for us to get started just because we've been having a lot of car troubles. But we talked a little bit today. And I know that he's anxious to get behind the wheel and start driving again. So that's exciting to watch. So with that, Caleb, what is your take on being so young in a field with adults? I mean, everybody in your bomber classes, they're adults, right? Everybody's 25, 30 plus, right?
It definitely puts like nerves on you because they're all older than me. It's just like scary. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot more fun than I thought it would be. And I'm just really lucky to have the chance.
Yeah, absolutely. If you had somebody, let's say in one of your classes, right, they came out to a race for their first time, they saw that you're out there, and they said, "Hey, Caleb, you know what I mean? I think it's really cool you're racing, dude. What do I have to do to get into that?" What would be your advice to that person?
Try and like go out in person and like talk to them. Like try and get more sponsors. Just reach out.
Definitely.
So what do you think? What do you think the most challenging part was, man? The first time you step onto a track, it's a lot different, right, than watching it from the sidelines when you're in control of the car. What did you kind of view as your toughest challenge actually driving?
Not knowing how to drive at the time.
He learned
that would be a challenge
behind the wheel on the track.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess I didn't preface that, did I? So Caleb had not driven a vehicle at all ever in his life. So his first time that he ever drove a vehicle was behind the wheel of a race car. We took him out to Mexico, for lack of better terms, and taught him how to drive stick. He practiced, clutch engagement at the shop, and then we took him down the road and to a place we call Mexico and let him do some laps, let him get some seat time before we decided to take him to the track. And like I said, I'll let him speak on that. So.
Yeah, the track was a lot like scarier. Being on the track is way different from the sidelines, like way different. And then the nerves really got to me after like the first lap or two. I just had it, and then it just went on from there.
So was it your second or third lap ever on the track behind the wheel of your race car? You spun out. What was going through your mind at that point in time? Because after you spun out. After that, it was like a new cheat code was unlocked, and Caleb was just, he looked like he had been behind the wheel 10, 15 years. So what was that like for you in the moment when you were coming around, you were coming out of turn 3, you came out of turn 2, went high up on the wall, dove in a little late, and you overcorrected, which caused you to spin. And luckily you kept it off the wall. But what was that like? What was going through your head at that time?
A lot of nerves. I just didn't want to hit the wall. I tried my best. I mean, I didn't hit the wall, luckily, at that time. But, yeah, it was just a I just
overcorrection. So, what did you learn from that experience, and what helped you progress to where you're at now, right? Because like I mentioned, you had to spin out on your second or third lap on the track ever. You had a pretty gnarly spin out. Kind of had everybody packed puckering. We were up in the press stand recording for you. And everybody was kind of like giving that oh shit moment, you know what I mean? Like, what's going to happen? Is he going to keep it off the wall? Because you came in. I mean, he came into that corner pretty hot, man. You were pushing probably about 50, 60 miles an hour when you came into that corner, and you were able to save it from hitting the wall and recover. So, what was that like for you? What did you learn from that experience moving forward that helped you keep that line after the fact and maintain that line without spinning again?
Just like speeding up and slowing down at like certain spots. And not turning too hard because the wheel was like a little shakier, and just getting used to it. Especially like down on the dips, I wasn't used to those.
Yeah, so our home track that we practice at has got a real hard dip coming out of turn 2, and it's a fast turn. But Yeah, man. So it was really cool to see you do that and really see you make that adjustment and adapt, right? So, your dad's a Marine. I know you've heard it before, the adapt and overcome kind of thing, right? Yeah, knows what I'm talking about. But, you got that whole adapt and overcome mindset and being so versatile mentally and being able to mentally recover from spinning out at 14 years old. You know what I mean? You were eager to, you got it back in gear, you spun the car back around, and you kept going. You didn't want to come off the track, right?
Yeah.
Seeing that was, I mean, honestly, it was breathtaking. Seeing somebody at such a young age take a chance and learn something, make a mistake, recover, learn from it, and keep moving forward. I commend you for that. My hat's off to you, and I hope the other viewers see that as well, man. You know what I mean? Like I said, age is just a number, especially when it comes to racing.
Yeah.
Well,
So keep that in
the
mind.
thing that you've got to learn, right? It's the same thing I tell my daughter. You mentioned that your steering wheel started fighting you back, right?
Yeah.
I know the tires that you guys have on that car are not. They're too
They weren't
spec.
the best.
They may not be the best tires.
Yeah.
And you've got to learn
I
the
was going
difference.
on like street tires.
Right. So you've got to learn to listen to your car. And I think that's
Yeah.
one of the lessons that you should have learned from that wreck. When you're racing, right? And I think any driver out there will kind of attest to this. Your goal is to outperform your vehicle. And when you push your vehicle, you're looking for that very first thing, right? It's the same as tuning a car. What is the very first thing that's getting ready to give up? Is it your fuel? Is it your tires? Your suspension? And you're looking for that next boundary. You're looking for that next limit every time. So you found your limit on that particular turn. With the dip coming out of turn 2, you're learning about suspension loading and unloading. And these are the lessons as a young driver that you should be taking. That way you get faster and you keep improving. But you've always got to push, right? I cannot begin to tell you how many tie rods I've bought for my daughter because she either makes it through the corner and takes first place, or she leaves her whole cart in a pile in the corner in pieces. And that's just how she races. It's the same way that I used to race, and there's a lot to be said for that, being aggressive. But also you have to be technical, and you need to learn your car and your driving style as you proceed through this.
Some of the things that I think are valuable that Caleb has learned thus far is one, response. Listening to the car. I think that's a good point. Two, he's also understanding the cost of the sport, right? With that being said, Caleb, you put your car on the wall twice, okay? And we're not picking on you by any means, but what did you learn from that, man? Some of the things that we talked about, you were running really good lines when you went high into the wall. We were running really good lines. You were pushing yourself. I believe you were chasing RC, who's a veteran racer in your class. He was on the track with you the time you went high out of turn 2, and you hit the wall. Okay, what did you learn from that? You know what I mean? What are some things that were going through your head when you hit the wall? Because spinning is one thing, but when you make contact with something hard that's not going to move, like a wall, you know what I mean? What does that do to you mentally as a young driver?
I wasn't ready for it. I was pushing the car too much. I was trying to keep up with RC, and I just lost control of the car and smacked the wall. And after that, I was super scared to go into another lap.
Yeah. So I know we pulled you off. We did a quick check on the car, and unfortunately that day it cut our practice short, right? Because we had broken a lower control arm and a tie rod going into the wall. But we gained something, right? We got positive camera on those outside wheels without having to do a modified suspension. So that was pretty gnarly. With that being said, after that, you had a pretty serious crash, right? Kind of same turn. You came in at turn 2. We're practicing before a race. And you were doing really, really well. I know I was on the radio. I was in your ear. I wasn't getting a lot of feedback from you. And the first thing I told you, hey, your tires, right? I saw your back end getting loose, and I said, hey, ease up, ease up, ease up. All right. Again, with that, driver mentality and the aggressive competitive mentality that you carry, which is not a bad thing. You know what I mean? You pushed the car and you wanted to push past your limits. What did you learn about yourself in that moment? Because what happened was you came out of turn 2, hit the dip, the ass end broke completely loose on you, and you J-hooked to the wall, and you ended up going nose first into the wall.
He learned that you didn't take out the airbags.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that scared him more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned in our previous podcast, safety is paramount for us. He has some of the best safety equipment, not only in the car but also for his person. Right. He's got a brand new helmet. He's got a good Snell rated helmet, neck brace, all of that good stuff. So safety is paramount. And we're grateful, that you walked away not even with a concussion, because I know you banged your head on the roll bar.
Yeah.
So we're super grateful for that. But that was a really important lesson for you, right? Learning the limits of not only yourself, but learning your limits of your car, right?
Yeah.
We learned what tire wear is. We learned how to recover from that, and you were ready to go back out there, right? After a few moments, he had to collect himself. He was good to go, get back into the racing mentality. He was ready to go back out. Unfortunately, our car died.
Yeah.
So we ended up spending the rest of the weekend working on the car. But like I said, man, those are some of the things that, and you guys heard it yourself. You heard it from, the driver himself, Caleb Watson. He runs the number 43 car, 07 Eclipse, and he will be driving our Daytona this year as well. But like I said, you guys heard it from him yourself, right? Age doesn't have a number. It gets frustrating. There's a lot to learn from it. There's a lot of lessons learned. Be humble, but don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And that's exactly what Caleb did. He put himself out there, man. He put himself out there. He was very much a sponge when it came to talking to the other veteran racers, talking to his team, talking to the guys on his team, and really taking that feedback and applying it to the track. If you guys meet Caleb outside of this, and I know he's talking, on the podcast, which I'm grateful for you joining it tonight. But if you meet him outside, he's not going to talk to you, man. He's just a very quiet, humble kid, and that's just who he is. There's nothing wrong with that, But when you see the kid behind the wheel, you wouldn't expect it. The kind of performance that he puts on. So with that, like I said, Caleb, I appreciate you, man. We're very grateful to have you on here. Great feedback. We've got some people that are in here watching. We've got some comments coming up about what to do when you're buying a performance car, things of that sort. So we're going to go ahead and jump into that. But Caleb, I'm going to let you go for the rest of the night, man. I know you got some family around you and whatnot. Again, I really appreciate you coming on and answering our questions, giving us that feedback, and allowing viewers to really listen to what it's like to be behind the wheel as a young driver. So thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, buddy, man. We'll, like I said, we'll keep in touch and hopefully get the ball rolling sooner than later.
Awesome.
All right, bye.
We'll see y'all later.
All right.
Man, he
Guys,
works.
that was really
he
cool
learns like
to have him on there. We weren't going to keep him on the whole podcast just so we can continue to cover our topics. I don't want to take too much of his time. He is with his family right now. But again, if you guys have questions for him, leave them in the comments. And I talk to him almost every day. I'm very aware of how to communicate with him. So if you guys got questions, you guys got feedback, got advice from maybe, your past time racing, feel free to drop it in the comments.
Man, he wrecks and learns a life lesson. I reckon I learned I don't have ABS.
You don't need ABS, bro. That's why you wrecked.
Man, that's why I ended up in a ditch.
Yeah. So there was that. Anywho, back to whatever it was we're talking about today. Buying cars. So buying cars. Everyone knows the basics, right? Look over the body, look over the engine, look for obvious damage, get a compression test. Some people don't know what a compression test is. Man, get a compression test. If you don't know what it is, take it to a mechanic. But more importantly, especially on a piston engine, right, get a leak down test. A leak down test, for those of you out there that don't know, not only, well, all right, let me back up. Compression test is going to measure your compression across the pistons, right? There's a specification with the engine warm, with the engine cold in your factory service manual of what the compression is between minimum compression, maximum compression, and the difference of compression between your pistons or your rotor faces, okay? Whatever that may be. That tests like your your piston ring wear, your bore wear, kind of right, like making sure that the engine is still healthy, moving air, right? A leak down test measures the actual seal on the piston rings. It measures the seal on the valves. It measures the seal on the head gasket, right? It's measuring what percentage of air is blowing by all of these different seals within the engine. And that can tell you a lot about the health of an engine. They're typically a little more expensive. They're a little more time consuming to do. Not every shop has a leak down tester. At least, over here in Asia, not every shop has that. It's just the way it is. In America, a lot more shops probably have it. Due to the access to like Snap-on and things like that, you can buy a cheap one on Amazon, I'm sure. But a leak down test is huge, and then body.
In America, we have something called Harbor Freight.
Yeah, whatever.
I didn't know if you were aware of that or not.
No, I only buy Snap-on.
In years, but we have a Harbor Freight, and it's actually pretty cool. It's not quite an Astro Tools, but
I'm a professional mechanic. I use Snap-on tools.
Snap-on. Matco. Yeah.
Can't hear you over all my Snap-on.
Yeah.
Ish, thank God, bro. There's Ish.
Ish, you need to jump on, bro.
Never let your lady pick the next project. Man, that's gonna get some blowback, but I can't say I don't agree.
Never let your lady pick your own your what is it?
But Ish,
Never
what if your lady's a better mechanic than you are?
Are you talking about yourself again?
Huh?
Are you talking about yourself again?
Yeah. My ex. No, man, it's Ish is hilarious, man. I love Ish. But yeah, pick your next project, man. Don't get it over your head. We talked about that today. Body work. My RX-7, I thought my RX-7 was pristine until I went to put the wide body on and found like a pound of
check your
water.
DMs.
So, yeah. Who else got something? Gail, what do you want to talk about, man? You're on the show. You ain't said shit.
Man, I don't know. What is it? What's left to talk about?
Whatever we want.
Shit.
So before we get into that, bikes. Yayo's been hanging out, man. He's been working around the shop, helping me out, but really learning a lot. And I hope you really are learning a lot, man. And first of all, I'm grateful, for your willingness to learn. Being humble coming in as a mechanic already, but not knowing really much about bikes to that level of automotive mechanics that you do, right? So hats off to you for that. But also, you've been hanging around like religiously for about a week now. And the shit that you've seen in a week, what would you say to potential buyers when they're looking for a bike? What would you say to those guys? Now that you've seen you've literally seen just about everything in a week.
Man, it really don't hurt to open up Google or YouTube. If you don't know it, I guarantee you someone out there knows it, and they've probably posted it. Go get lost in a Reddit dark hole. You'll save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because it's quite surprising some of the things that'll walk in. And it's just like, like I don't know much about nothing, but it's like, brother.
It's funny that you say that, man. It's a good point that I'm glad you brought up. When I first got started, I was in business like a year or so, and someone anonymously took a shot at me in the Okinawa car groups. If you want a mechanic that gives you Google answers, hit up this guy. He's a coward because he wants to post anonymous when he takes shots.
Say his name, bitch.
I don't know dude, I still don't know his name to this day. But he took that shot at me. But you know what, man? Yeah, there is the FSM, and I always have the FSM open. Anyone that's ever walked into my shop for any kind of work on their car knows that I have all the FSMs for whatever platform. If I don't have them, I'll go get them. Right? And the FSMs are great, and they got all your torque specs for everything. You'll never hear me say otherwise. However,
that's your factory service manual for those guys that don't understand what it is. FSM is your factory service manual.
right? That is your service manual that all the techs at whatever respective dealership are going to use. It's got all your torque specs for the engine. However, I will also say that the factory service manual is designed for a stock car. I have found quicker answers and more accurate answers off the old message board forums for a specific chassis, right, than you're going to find in the FSM a lot of times. And I'm not saying that FSM is wrong, right? What I'm saying is that when you start dealing with modified cars, man, you can go into Google and punch in 1997 Subaru GC8 makes brap, 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 brap sound on cranking. What the hell does that mean? And if you dig
Love
long
you,
enough,
Ish.
you'll probably find an answer, right? Or at least if you're a good mechanic, you're going to find some clues to help you narrow things down along the way, which ultimately is going to save your clients money as well as you go through the technical troubleshooting process. Am I saying that's the right answer every time? No. Am I saying it is another tool and another asset? Absolutely. Just like Yayo was saying, it doesn't hurt to check the internet. Someone has done this problem before. Someone's worked through this problem before. And sometimes, man, if you do this for a living, you get some weird shit that comes in your door, man.
You know,
Like-
and sometimes it's like the answer's literally right in front of you. You know how I learned how to tighten the chain? Off the sticker on my swing arm on my 636. That's how I learned how to tighten my chain. The sticker was on the bike from the factory.
Well, that's helpful.
Yeah. Well, it's on most bikes if you don't peel it away because it's an
Wait.
ugly sticker.
Don't talk about anything other than Ducati to Seth, all right? Because he's a fucking Italian princess, apparently.
I am a Ducati princess. Thank you.
It's all right. Sicilians are better anyway.
He rides a Harley now, by the way, so he's all American.
Yes, sir.
That's all right.
As we say
I
in the
just-
shop, I don't know shit about fuck, so.
I don't know shit about fuck.
Yeah, man.
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
I would say that if I had to think about all the years I've been doing this with all the different chassis, probably the most common issue I see that has guys running in circles, even guys that have owned cars before and have some experience, is electrical. It's grounding. And so
Wiring.
if I was against my own will, I went out and got my motorsports wiring certifications, just so I understood it better. Because I'll be honest, man, I hated wiring, right? I absolutely hated wiring. I hated tracing wiring. I hated doing wiring in cars. Because if you've ever cut open a chassis harness or tried to dig through a chassis harness, holy shit, man, right? There are 8 million wires, and they all go to relays and fuse boxes and everything else. And then when you get experience with it, if you take the time to educate yourself with it, you realize how simple it really can be. And now I'm not intimidated by it all. I'll do chassis PDMs. I'll go in, I'll troubleshoot. Now, it doesn't mean the troubleshooting an OEM car isn't horrible. But most of the time with the electrical stuff I see, it comes down to two things. One, corrosion. And not just corrosion of the body, corrosion of the actual grounding straps, right? On the RX-7, for example, you have a negative lead that goes from the negative battery terminal down onto the front strut bar right there on the fender, and then it goes down to the engine and along, right? That's your main ground point coming off the battery. And that first 12-inch section that goes from the battery terminal down to the chassis of the car will get corroded. And I've had multiple RX-7s come in with non-start issues, right? It'll crank. Maybe it'll fire, maybe it won't. Or it has sporadic, the dash lights up and blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. Some sort of crazy electrical. And just by cutting off that 12-inch section, running a brand new battery lead for that 12 inches with a new battery terminal on it, everything's cleared up immediately. So grounds are one thing. And look at your grounds, look at your chassis, and that goes back to what Juan was talking about. Look at your rust. Jesus Christ. Look at your rust on the car. I'm getting blown up for remote tunes right now that I owe people. So that's going to be your number one. Two, if the owner of the car will let you, right? Now, depending on if you've got cash in hand, if you're a serious buyer, how the shop or the person you're buying from feels, they may or may not let you. pull the radio panel out from the car, or try and look behind the dash. The other thing I see is just rat's nest wiring from hell. Right, 20 years of alligator clips and tap-a-fuse and splices that aren't even using connectors. They just strip some wire, twist it together, and put some electrical tape over the end, like that was going to hold forever. Soldering, a lot of guys solder, and a lot of guys, unfortunately, in the motorsport industry, even, well, I don't want to say motorsport industry, in the mechanical industry, still think that soldering is the correct answer when it comes to wiring on a vehicle. And it absolutely 1000% is not the right answer. It is horrible. The vibrations and the heat will cause the solder to crack over time. A proper crimp is stronger than a solder connection ever will be. I'm gonna turn it over to Juan real quick because I have to take this phone call.
Yeah, man. So talking about alligator clips and things of that sort, man, my personal favorite, and I will stand by this 100% of the time, solder steel connectors. Okay. Unfortunately, Napa's the only one that sells them, and they only sell two sizes, right? They sell like an 18 gauge and they sell a 14 gauge. Solder steel connectors are the way to go. You can go on Amazon, spend $30, get a 10,000 piece set of solder steel connectors in all different sizes, and I stand by that, man. Solder steel connectors, you can't go wrong. What it is your standard heat shrink, or your standard heat shrink waterproof connector that has a solder ring inside. When you heat it with a heat gun, it solders and shrinks down onto the wire and keeps a good connection. Solder steel connectors are the way to go, and I stand by that. Now, with that being said, one thing that we see all the time is you're on a bike, bro. You got two freaking wheels. Two fucking wheels, man. And you want to twist wires together and put electrical tape on it? I've seen that shit. It blows my mind that you are willing to risk your life on two wheels by twisting some wires together and calling it a day. Wrong. Don't fucking do it. And that goes back to kind of the buyer's guide issue, right? When we're talking about looking at bikes and checking them out, making sure that you're getting some good shit. When you look at it,
give me a minute. I'm gonna go get some shit to show you guys.
Yeah, but you go in and you're looking at a bike to buy, and the dude's got these aftermarket karaoke speakers mounted to the bar. Yayo knows exactly what I'm talking about. You got these aftermarket speakers mounted to the bar. You've got a fucking a faux cholo roll on the front that's a speaker wired into your ignition fuse, and you've got all these LEDs on here because you want to be too fast, too furious, bring it back to 2000. You know what I mean? Like, dude, when I see that shit, I just, it's beyond me the way these guys wire it in. You know what I mean?
It's all zip tied on, so if it falls off, it'll probably kill you.
It's all zip tied on. It's all fucking. I mean, hell, we had a bike come in that kept popping his light fuse, and we couldn't figure out why he kept popping his light fuse. Dude, he had a fuse tap to his light fuse on his Harley Street Glide. Every time he hit a bump and the suspension compressed, it was taking more and more of the insulation off a wire and ended up grounding itself out. So every time this guy would hit a bump, his lights would go out. Why? Because he had this shit fuse tapped in there. Blows my mind. Again, you're on two wheels and you want to do some bullshit wiring and throw a light package on and throw all these badass LEDs in the back. Nah, screw that, dude. I know you don't want to spend the money, but spend the money. Go to Harley. Get the LED back package. You can get them from, freaking LED Dynamics, things of that sort. Go spend the money and do it right.
All right. Check it out. So these are the three primary crimpers that I use for my entire business. All right. It's a DMC AFM8M or AFM8, right? It's for closed barrel crimpers, closed barrel connections. These are pretty expensive. They make Chinese knockoffs from JR Ready. You can get them on Amazon, cheap as shit. These are like the best connections that you can use. And you use them with these. This is a Deutsch Autosport connector. Male and female. They also make Chinese knockoff versions of these because the real version from Deutsch is extremely expensive. We use it on motorsport grade harnesses, but you can get these on Amazon, an entire kit like this with the crimpers for like $200, right? And it's going to have hundreds of connectors. The terminals themselves are completely closed barrel, they're closed loop. And this is the easiest electrical you ever do. You strip the wire, you shove it in the little hole, and you put this inside the little blue crimper and pull the trigger, and you have a 360-degree crimp. That shit is never coming undone. It is waterproof, it is sealed, right? Happy day. That is the best way to do it. If you need to do a splice and you don't want to put a connector, I think these guys, these are like, I don't know, $80 on Amazon, $100, right? Little open barrel splice crimper. And if you need to do a splice, you can get these kits from places like ProWire USA. Again, Amazon has, Chinese versions, whatever. But they're these little gold open connectors that you probably can't see in my hand. They come in various sizes. Put your wire in there, and it does a double crimp when you crimp down on it, ratchet and crimp. And I promise you that you will tear the wire in half before you pull that splice loose. Right? It is stronger than any solder connection you'll ever make. It is stronger than any twist and wrap bullshit alligator connector, right? That is the right way to do this. That is the right way to splice. It's never coming undone. And then finally, you've got your little double crimp alligator crimpers right here. These work great for like ECU connectors, any kind of your tiny terminals like that. But with those three crimpers and or their cheaper versions, you're set and you can do the job correctly, right? For a couple $100 if you're gonna do this all the time, or there's kits on Amazon that have all the crimpers for MetroPack and WeatherPack and all that crap that are the right way to do things. And you have the right tool now. You're not gonna have electrical issues in the future. Just do it right, do it once, and be done. And never worry about that issue again. I got a delivery.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And maybe that's something that we can tune into for next week, just to kind of preface next week. I'll be bringing some tools in from the shop. My shop, I don't live at my shop. Surprising, I know, crazy. My shop's actually down the street, but that's definitely something that we're going to cover going into next week is going to be what is your most used tool in the shop, or what you think, in your opinion, is the most important tool to have. I know I've got several that I use, so I'll probably pull in my top 3 for next week and say these are the tools that are a must-have and you got to try. Yayo was with me. I had officially found my new favorite tool, especially when it comes to working on Harleys. I got this cool ass mini set, but definitely for next week, I think bringing in some tools from the shop, and we can talk about that for a little while about what are some must-have tools that we recommend for your shop. Even if you're just a DIY guy, man, at home, because we know a lot of guys wrench. I know a lot of guys, from Oki especially, that do their own wrenching. That's cool, man. You know what I mean? But these are some must-have tools that are going to make your life a hell of a lot easier. Now, with that being said, going into our closing, we got about 12 minutes left, give or take. What is the worst purchase, bike or car, that you've ever made, and what was your experience with that, purchasing from a private seller?
I got one right out of the gate, dude. So there was a CBR 600 that was purchased by someone without me going to look it over back in the day. And the complaint was, hey man, it leaks oil on my shoe when I'm riding, which is obviously a red flag immediately. Well, when I got home, because I was going on a business trip, of course, the bike had been laid down, right? And it had cracked the clutch cover on the side of it, the crankcase cover, and it was leaking from it. They had basically filled it with JB Weld and then painted over it to make it smooth, but it didn't seal because it's pressurized at that point, right? Like it's pushing oil back out. And basically the bike was totaled, and we paid a pretty fair market value for that bike. And it sucked, man. Like it was a shitty deal all the way around. I was basically out a few $1,000s on this CBR. So ended up giving that person my Ducati and buying a bigger Ducati so they could get on the track as well. And lesson learned on that.
Yeah, what you got?
Man, I bought a '98 Impala SS because it's a grocery getter during the weekdays, dad's sports car on the weekend, and who'd have thunk when you open the hood on a car and the header say Corvette, it's going to be very expensive. But I mean, being from New York, rot is one of the least of your worries. You're lucky to find a car that is not on cinder blocks. But car was rotted out. I thought that I put a whole new definition of bodywork, especially when most of it's fiberglass. Good Lord. It's expensive quick. And high performance sports cars, when you're buying them used, they definitely got the crap beat out of them. 100%.
Oh, 100%.
All the time.
We learned that being an Okie, man. You can't. There's no such thing as buying a sports car in Okie that ain't got rust, it ain't got Bondo, or it has been beat to shit.
And the car will act different in between the different owners. So you'll buy a car. So when you buy a car, the week that you bought it, no rod knock. You drive it around for a month. Next thing you know, you have rod knock. Crazy how that works. Sawdust is the thing.
Oh yeah. So Cody said his '89 RX-7 FC. Dude, that thing was a nightmare for all of us. We got the car, had a shit ton of body work done to it. A lot of it was Bondo. We ended up repainting it. He got it, and it was like a vomit blue. If like a blue waffle queefed, then it would be a vomit blue, right? That's pretty much what the car looked like.
It's like a matte clear coat. Didn't you paint that?
With a little bit of a fucking menstrual blood on there. Like it was blue and red. It's got some red tint to it. Car was ugly as fuck, dude. We got the car. Seth did all the motor work. He's the rotary guy. He's the rotary SME, if you will. And
there was so much step wear on those irons. So much step wear.
So the motor was shit. We get the car. I was like, you know what? We're going to paint this bitch. So we painted it like a bass boat, bro. I'm talking black base coat, 14 karat gold flake, full coverage. Didn't look like a bass boat. Did not run. Still doesn't run to this day. Matter of fact, it was in the junkyard not too long ago.
No, I have that. I still had that engine in Japan before I gave it away. Actually,
it was terrible. So that's a little bit about Cody's '89 FC. But I mean, it's a cool car. If you get running and they're in good shape.
Unfortunately, man, that was one of those projects that we talk about doing things the right way all the time, and it doesn't mean that we always follow our own advice, right? I mean, those irons were 1,000,000,000% out of spec on step wear. And we hoped that with just fresh seals inside the motor, we could squeeze some more life out of it. And that just
kind of compression.
That wasn't the case at all. So, we cut the corners and we paid the price. Yeah.
So I've got two cars. Okay. I've got some bikes that I bought that are shit and I'll never buy them again. But I've got two bikes in particular that stand out to me, or two cars, excuse me, that stand out to me. The first one is the very first car that I ever bought when I got to Okinawa. It was a early 2000s Mitsubishi Eclipse wagon. Okay. It wasn't even a legit Eclipse. It was the Mitsubishi Eclipse wagon. Shittiest car I've ever bought. Okay. I get this car. I'm like, dude, I'm so excited. I'm like, hell yeah, it's a right-hand drive. I get to, learn on this car. It was automatic. And with it having the Eclipse name, I'm like, oh, this thing's pretty cool. So I go on, I'm going to work one day and I'm like, fuck it, full send, rip the e-brake in a front-wheel drive wagon. Car spun all the way around. I shit my pants a little. And then I realized, holy shit, this car's running like crap. I got to work, went home after work, and the car just died. I opened the hood, every goddamn vacuum hose, because they've got a gazillion vacuum hoses, every vacuum hose, dry rotted or broken, no compression, through a rod. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Worst car I've ever purchased. Worst purchase I've ever made. And the shitty part is, a good friend of mine was like, "Hey, I've got this staff sergeant that's selling this car. He's leaving Island. You need a car. He'll sell it to you for this much." Da 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 da. Well, after I blew the car up and took it to the junkyard, 1 week after I bought it, okay, I then find out that he got a kicker for selling the car. Dude made like $200-300 for selling the car to me as a reference fee. Okay, horse shit. We'll never do that again. The second worst car I've ever bought, which is in competition with the first, is my wife's 2016 Dodge Grand Caravan. Now, I don't hate on all Dodges because they made some good cars. They still, they're not making the Challenger anymore, but they got the Red Eye. I think it's pretty hot. I owned a Scat Pack. I think they're cool ass cars for what they are. You know what I mean? But the Dodge Grand Caravan, I will never advise anybody in the world to purchase a Dodge Grand Caravan. Okay? I get the car.
Why would anyone buy a Caravan to begin with?
Okay, because we have kids. Those things that start with a K. We've got kids.
Accidents.
And we needed the space. Okay, so we bought a Dodge Grand Caravan. Now
You just buy a pickup and put them in the back like real adults.
Yeah. The Dodge Grand Caravan, being a 2016, we bought it in 18, so it's a 2-year-old car. And 3 weeks after I took it home, transmission shift solenoid goes out. Well, guess what? You can't replace just the shift solenoid on a Dodge Grand Caravan. You got to do the whole valve body. Okay? Yeah, Cody. So, so you got to do the whole valve body. Horseshit. Whatever. I eat the cost. I take it to the dealership, and they told me that it is not covered under warranty because it's not an oil lubricated part. At that point, I went home, pulled apart the transmission, pulled out the valve body, which was full of ATF, by the way. I put it in a baggie, brought it to the dealership, and set it on the service underwriter's desk, full of oil.
You have 30 seconds to finish this story.
Okay, not very good, but it was, time after time. So I've had the car since 18. I have now put 2 transmission valve bodies in it, 1 torque converter pressure release valve in it. I have replaced the door, a window switch, a seat switch. It's a piece of shit fucking car. I will never advise anybody to buy a Dodge Grand Caravan. For those of you looking for minivans, what is that?
That would be Gulf Formula Elite Oil, made and designed for the McLaren.
Oh, I've got
Available here at
Canyons.
Man,
So,
y'all got all these
yeah.
cool tools. I just got a
Worst
bunch of
car
guns.
possible. And guys, for those viewers that we still got, man, you guys can always comment. Facebook, Facebook, Instagram. They will post on YouTube as well. You guys can always feel free to comment, give your feedback, give us ideas for topics, man. Because believe it or not, we fucking struggle trying to come up with topics for the next week. So just keep that in mind, man. We are always looking for feedback. I've ran into some of our viewers, which is awesome. I love you guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. But I've ran into some of our viewers, and I've gotten some feedback from them, and they find it very knowledgeable. They enjoy the humor that comes with it, and really, we're just a bunch of guys that turn wrenches, man. We're a bunch of guys that turn wrenches. We're vets. We got the same mentality, and fuck your feelings. So that's where we're at.
Some of us turn wrenches. Some of us try to turn wrenches.
Some of us are going back to sleep.
It's the morning. It's the day for you. I'm going to sleep after.
Yeah, I know, but the alternative is to work on this fucking skyline.
Good luck. So, in closing, again, guys, we appreciate you guys coming in. We appreciate you tuning in. Yayo, thank you for coming in. Caleb's off now, but I did text him already. I appreciate Caleb jumping on and giving his feedback from a young perspective, getting into the motorsports. Phil, you have been on every week that we have been here, so we always appreciate you. We always appreciate you tuning in as one of our dedicated viewers, man. It's definitely appreciated. We appreciate the love all the way around from all of our platforms, all of our followers. Ish, I reached out to Ish. Thank you, man. Cody cannot be on today because he's at work. But again,
next week, I think.
we're going to talk about some of the must-have tools that you need, whether you're a DIY or a professional mechanic. Okay, we're going to talk about some must-have tools. I'm going to talk about some of our favorite tools. that I have in my shop, some things that I use every day. I'm going to limit to my top three. And then Seth is going to do the same. We're going to limit to our top three tools that we think you must have and go from there, man.
I've got one tool that you need.
Yeah, we're not talking about your dick, bro.
No, neither was I, you pervert. All right, guys. On that note of Juan being a pervert, we're Audi 5000. Later.